There is a new sheriff in town along the southern border. But what's the border czar's actual job? Plus, are Republicans about to clinch the House? And how do you raise $1 billion but end up in debt? That's Topping the Hill on NewsNation tonight. We begin tonight with a look at the southern border, which will soon have a new enforcer, you could say. Tom Homan, the one-time director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Donald Trump's first administration, tapped by the president-elect today as the quote-unquote border czar. And a live look right now across the Intercoastal in Palm Beach, Florida, as Trump remains at Mar-a-Lago, transition headquarters, you could say. The president-elect now beginning to make announcements and fill out his cabinet. The New York Congresswoman, Elise Stefanik, chosen to be one of the nation's top diplomats, as she will head to the United Nations. The former New York Congressman, Lee Zeldin, selected to lead the Environmental Protection Agency. Stefanik and Zeldin will both face Senate confirmation. Trump's former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, former press secretary, Sean Spicer, with us here on the Hill in a moment. But first, we begin tonight with our Robert Sherman, who is outside transition headquarters with the very latest. Robert?
A lot of moving pieces here over the last 24 hours, so we'll dive right into it. In terms of how the cabinet is shaping up right now, let's go through who is in at this point. Susie Wiles will be serving as White House Chief of Staff. We've known that one for a few days. But some of these new additions, Elise Stefanik taking over the position of ambassador to the UN. She just put out a statement in which she acknowledged that there's rising anti-Semitism around the globe and that she wants to bolster America's position in this new capacity. You see Tom Homan there. He's been very outspoken about the issues along the U.S.-Mexico border and has been certainly supportive of President-elect Trump's desires in order to carry out a larger deportation agenda after assuming office. Stephen Miller back in the administration after serving the last go-around as a senior advisor. And then Congressman Lee Zeldin from the EPA saying that he wants to ensure that United States becomes a force when it comes to energy. But then there are two people who will not be in the administration. Nikki Haley, the former ambassador to the UN, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, with the president-elect saying that those two, he was thankful for their service before, but they will not be back in this current administration. Blake?
Robert Sherman, live for us once again this evening in Florida. Robert, thank you. Joining us now here on the Hill, two men who once worked very closely with Donald Trump in his first administration. Mick Mulvaney, of course, the former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor. Sean Spicer, former Trump White House Press Secretary, NewsNation contributor as well, host of the Sean Spicer podcast. Hello to you both. Thanks for being with us here tonight. Appreciate it. Obviously, the former president-elect is moving forward here. Mick, Sean, I'll ask you both the same. I see two non-Senate confirmed positions, Chief of Staff, border czar, then two Senate confirmed, the EPA and the UN ambassador. What's the jockeying like right now, Mick, in Trump world? And why did he go there to start?
Judging by my phone blowing up, the jockeying is in full steam. But listen, I don't get it. Maybe Sean will have some insight that I don't. These are the chief of staff position. Fantastic, great, the right position to name first, because now she'll be able to help build her own team in the West Wing. I thought that's, to my mind, one of the best picks I've seen so far. I don't get the other ones, though, because they're deemed to be sort of secondary positions. I thought that maybe Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense, AG would come out first, but now we're hitting EPA and UN. Not that diminishes the roles. They don't. They're just not the big juicy ones I expected first. But maybe Spicer understands more than I do about that.
Yeah, Sean, that's what I was sort of alluding to there was the cadence of the first handful of picks there. Do you read anything into it the way Trump's starting this off, or no?
No. In 2016, a few days in, I got a phone call from the president-elect, and he said, I need you to announce David Friedman as ambassador to Israel. There is no process to this. He meets with people and makes a decision. He's going to announce them. So I don't think, you saw, a couple of it's all over the board, right? You got chief of staff, then border czar. There's rumors that he'll soon announce Stephen Miller's return to the White House. Then you've got these two, cabinet positions. that he announced, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. Once he makes up his mind on any position, I wouldn't be surprised to see an ambassador get thrown in there. Again, you would assume that the Secretary of State would get announced first. But, as he makes his decisions, the beauty of this, and I think there's three things. Number one, I don't think that we can understate the importance of what's happened of 4 years in the wilderness. The work of America First Policy Institute and of Heritage Foundation to give options and plans, runways to take off from, if you will, of both personnel and policy has been instrumental. And when you look at both the personnel and the process that's going to happen coming back into office, I think you're going to see a very focused on both sides. What I mean by that is the people are going to be people who are dedicated to advancing
what do you mean by that? Because some folks would say, wait a minute, focus and Trump, it's all over the place.
Right, but think of the people that have been announced so far. They're unwavering in those areas of their support of Donald Trump. And then on the process side, and this is where we've got to be careful, we say Senate confirmed processes. They've been studying the process, and there's a lot of talk about putting people in under an acting capacity where they won't face Senate confirmation, right? And so you're going to see a lot of Schedule Cs, those political appointments that don't require flooding the zone.
So let me jump off there for a second, because Tom Homan, the quote-unquote border czar, he was in the administration the last go-around running ICE. Here was Tom Homan earlier today, and then I'll get your reaction on the other side.
I've been clear, President Trump's been clear. Public safety threats and national security threats will be the priority, because they have to be. They pose the most danger to this country. So we're going to prioritize those groups.
So, Mick, he's the border czar, but I was looking at the flow chart today of DHS, Department of Homeland Security. There's a Senate-confirmed position, and then underneath that, the Secretary, there's Customs and Border Protection, there's Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, there's the Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard, there's the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. How does the border czar fit into all of this, Mick?
Trump doesn't care about that chart. What you're looking at now is a commentary by the administration that they are going to emphasize immigration in the first 6 months. I've heard the same rumors that Spicer has about Stephen Miller going back in, maybe as a deputy chief of staff, not even in his previous position. So I think what you're seeing is, look, immigration is going to be a big deal, and Trump doesn't care about hierarchies or organizational charts. He wants somebody in charge, and he just put Tom Homan in charge. Is Tom going to work with the DHS secretary? Yes. Is he going to work with the Domestic Policy Council? Yes. But he's going to be the guy that when Trump wants to know what's going on in immigration, he goes to him. Very quickly, something that Spicer said caught my attention, which is a rare thing for Sean, because usually he puts me to sleep. But listen, I did a phone call today with a member of the transition team, and the level of sophistication on the issues is so far beyond what it was in 2017. They've already started playing this chess on how to get the agenda put into play. They've been working on this for 4 years. So Sean's exactly right. This is not going to look anything like it did in 2017. This is going to be, Trump 1.0 on steroids.
Sean, if we were sitting there in 2017 in the briefing room, you're up at the podium, I'm in the chair, like it was for many months there to start, I would raise my hand, and if you chose on me, I would go back to that chart and I would say, wait a minute, Sean, I'm looking at a DHS, someone who's in charge of DHS, and I hear Mick there that Trump doesn't care about the chart, but I think it is a real question, right, of how all of this is going to work, because you're going to have a secretary and a border czar.
No, well, first of all, look, two things. One, you saw John Kerry, former senator, former secretary of state, be the climate czar in the last administration. So what it really comes down to, and this is where, it surprises me that Mick was quasi-right on something. But the bottom line is that if you are empowered by President Trump to do anything, that's all that matters. At the end of the day, he doesn't care about flowcharts. He doesn't care about titles. He cares about getting the job done. So Tom Homan is empowered to go across different areas of government agencies, departments. There's also talked about aviation security. That would fall in DOT. But the bottom line is that Trump is going to hold them accountable to get things done.
Let me ask you both real quick about Elise Stefanik. This was one of the moments earlier this year in which a decent portion of America learned about the Republican Congresswoman from the state of New York.
Does that speech not call for the genocide of Jews and the elimination of Israel?
When
you testify that you understand that is the definition of intifada. Is that speech according to the code of conduct or not?
We embrace a commitment to free expression and give a wide berth to free expression, even of views that are objectionable.
So that, of course, is the hearing, the Congresswoman and the then president of Harvard University and the conversations there about anti-Semitism. Sean, here's what I found interesting, and I want to get your thoughts as well, Mick. The House right now, Decision Desk HQ projects that there's only going to be 220 Republican seats in the House. And anything above 218 is the margin. So if she ends up, if Congresswoman Stefanik ends up becoming the ambassador, that number in the House, until there's an election there in New York, ticks down to 219. My point is there's only so many folks in the House that Donald Trump, at this point in time, can tap. Why did she go there? Why did he go there, rather, with her?
Well, obviously, he likes Elise. He likes the fact that she's a fighter. She demonstrated it there, but she's also been an extremely outspoken advocate of Israel. So I think he liked her style, her commitment to the issues. So that's why she got picked. But the point you're bringing up is so important, right? New York, I think Governor Hochul will have 10 days to call an election. And then I think she's got 60 to 80 days, or I forgot what the law is in New York. But you're right. As he chooses these House members, Congressman Mike Waltz has been rumored. You get that number down to 218. And it's not just the actual number. I mean, Mick knows this as a former House member. Sometimes people are sick. Sometimes they have operations. They've got family obligations. And if I were Speaker Johnson, I'd be worried every single day, about whether or not attendance was where it is, because the Democrats are not going to cut him any breaks.
Is she going to be the last one that Donald Trump selects from the House, Mick?
Probably, because Sean's right. You just can't go that much deeper unless they end up with 223, 224, which I don't think they're going to get. But keep in mind, unlike some other choices in the previous administration, this is a really safe seat. It's a D+9 seat. It's upstate New York. I don't think there's any risk here of losing this like we lost, say. I'm sorry, R+9.
R is the word that
R+9.
She's part of the R one that Mick. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you asked for a short answer from Sean Spicer, which is not possible, but we'll talk about that another time. Yeah, I think it's a safe seat that
no, but he didn't ask for it. If he wanted to talk to you, he'd say he wanted a short person. But that's
oh, gosh, I'll leave it there, guys. I'll leave it there. Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House Chief of Staff. Sean Spicer, former Trump White House Press Secretary. They know each other and like each other, if you couldn't figure it out. Thank you both. Appreciate your time. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye. Meantime. Yes, President Biden, Vice President Harris today marked Veterans Day at Arlington National Cemetery, the first time they appeared together since Tuesday's election. The president spoke after the wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
This is the last time I will stand here at Arlington as Commander-in-Chief. It's been the greatest honor of my life to lead you, to serve you, to care for you, to defend you, just as you defended us. Generation after generation after generation.
The commander-in-chief on this Veterans Day also paid tribute to his son, Beau Biden, who served in Iraq. Beau Biden died of brain cancer in 2015. Still to come here from the Hill on NewsNation, Scott Trainer from Decision Desk HQ, back with an update on where the House stands. One seat away for Republicans. They're almost there. Not there yet. We're keeping our eyes as well on the battle in the Senate. Chris Stirewalt joins us to break down who is running to replace Mitch McConnell as the new majority leader. Welcome to Washington. This is the center of politics. I'm Blake Berman, and the Hill is back and forth. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Nearly a week after Election Day, the balance of power in Congress remains in play. Kind of. House Republicans are getting closer to maintaining their majority and securing a trifecta here in Washington. Now, Decision Desk HQ now calling the 8th district in the state of Colorado right here. Gabe Evans, the Republican, winning with 49% of the vote. You can see there that happens to be by about 2,500 votes or so. It also means Republicans now have 217 seats in the lower chamber. There are, however, 8 more races that still need to be called. Meantime, in the U.S. Senate, there is one seat left to be claimed from the hotly contested state of Pennsylvania. Right now, Republicans are taking the majority with 52 seats, while Democrats have 47. DDHQ has not yet called the Pennsylvania race. According to DDHQ, 98% of Pennsylvania's Senate votes are in. The Republican candidate, David McCormick, right now with 50.3%. Look at this. What are we talking about? 40,000 votes or so, give or take. Over the incumbent, the Democrat Bob Casey. McCormick did declare victory on Friday after the Associated Press projected his win. Now he's taking legal action by challenging uncounted provisional ballots in Philadelphia. Chris Steyerwalt takes you back. Let me show you. We're going to get Trainer here in a second. We're just getting him mic'd up. Let me take you, and let's go interactive here on the wall for a second and go back to Pennsylvania, because I want to show what's going on in PA. Some 40,000 votes there. This would be a big W for Republicans if they can close the deal.
So I'm transported back to 2008.
Okay.
It was Minnesota, which was a state that Republicans were competing with Democrats, right. And they had a senatorial election there, and they counted and counted and counted, and it was Norm Coleman, right. And it was Al Franken, and they counted and counted and counted, and now I'm having flashbacks because we've got lawsuits. We have the party out of power suing to stop the count and back and forth, and wow.
They tried to cut your mic, Trainer. Nobody can cut Trainer's mic, DDHQ. How come you haven't called the race?
Because we think there's about 115,000 votes left. We think they're going to break heavily to Casey, and this race is close enough. It's still a chance he's going to win. By the way, this is the scenario we were worried about at the presidential level.
Right? Yeah, right.
And
like razor-thin margins.
Razor-thin margins, right. And we're talking about provisional ballots all over the state.
Okay, let me pull up the House here, because Republicans right now are one seat shy. 217, you need 218, 80% chance you think of at least that happening.
Oh, yeah, and I think, this is the model.
You can update the graphic.
That was a confident
This is a model. I'm going to add some qualitative, non-quantitative data here. I think we're going to get a pretty favorable drop for California 41 tonight for Calvert that could get us to 218. The Republican, Ken Calvert, could get us to 218. There's a couple other seats out there, Alaska, Arizona 6, a few others, but it's a pretty good chance the Republicans are going to have the House. It's just a question of how many seats.
And you think it's around 220, give or take?
220, 221.
All right. We'll leave it there with Trainer. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so as Republicans appear, they will win the majority of both chambers of Congress. They will vote for their leader later this week. Within the Republican ranks in the Senate, there is a private battle brewing ahead of their vote on Wednesday. It's a secret vote. One of those running, the Florida Senator Rick Scott, this morning on Fox and Friends, pledging his support for Donald Trump's agenda.
The country voted. They want a change. They want the Trump agenda. They want his nominees. They want his policies. We've got to do everything we can to get that done.
Chris Steyerwalt back here to break it all down. Chris, you and I both know that right there by Rick Scott is what is called an audience of one.
That's right.
You go on Fox and Friends in the morning and you try to talk directly to Donald Trump, and that's what he was doing.
That's right. Okay, so
break it down for me.
Let's look at how the process will work. Here's how the process will work. Ta-da! Okay, so there's 53 votes. The whole constituency here is just 53 human beings. It's all 49 current sitting senators plus the new elected ones. Now, they are going to have McCormick be there.
Okay.
Now, McCormick's not elected yet, as we were talking about, and we're counting. But he's going to get a vote because the Republicans are mad that he's not being included in orientation, so he gets a vote. All you got to do is get 27 votes. Not that many. And by the way, well, let's see the next graphic, and that's the let's look at who's running graphic is what they want me to call it. Okay, so these are the three cats who are running to replace Mitch McConnell, who is the longest serving. Mitch McConnell is the longest serving party leader in Senate history. He's been there since 2007. So you got the chalk, right? You got the
Thune
establishment.
Cornyn, they've been there forever.
Current number two, huge fundraisers. These are the guys who have the sweat equity in the positions. They've played by the rules. They've done the thing. Then you've got Scott, who tried this 2 years ago and got smoked like a ham. And is back now with Trump behind him. And he's picked up Marco Rubio and Bill Hagerty, senator from Florida and senator from Tennessee, because both of those guys are in line for appointments in the Trump administration. And so this is MAGA world comes out big for him. Here's the problem. Take a look at here. Here is the tests that are awaiting them.
Okay.
Two big things. The president-elect put out a truth that then is transmogrified into a tweet on Sunday and said that he didn't think that they should review his appointments to the administration, and that they should go into recess so he can just pick anybody he wants and they don't have to be confirmed.
Right.
Looming also out there is that we remember in the first Trump term, the filibuster, he hated it because you can't just ram stuff through on party line votes. The Republicans have 53 seats in the United States Senate. It's all up to them. They can really do whatever they want. The fight over these things, Scott seems to be on the other side with Trump to diminish the power of the Senate. Those two seem to be on the side of the Senate and increasing the power of the Senate. That's what they're going to be talking about Wednesday.
Steyerwalt breaks it down. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill, from Oprah to the Call Her Daddy podcast, the Harris campaign now in debt after spending millions to pay for celebrity speakers. Plus, how will Trump plan to crack down on immigration on the border? One of the congressmen from the state of Texas who is in a border district joins us live here on the Hill. We're back and forth. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Tonight, Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in the red because of a reported $20 million campaign debt. And a week after her loss, the Harris campaign is still fundraising. Now, here's the campaign's website and an email, really, that they put out titled Harris Fight Fund, which allows for donations up to $2,000 and more. NewsNation Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer is here. What is going on? They raised through the roof, and now they're in the red?
$1 billion in the bank, $115 million in October, and then now $20 million in debt that they're trying to clean out of. So a lot of it is digital ad spending, a lot of it is state-to-state travel, and a lot of it is polling. Take, for example, the Sphere ad, the Las Vegas Sphere. $450K a day, $650 million total. Then we heard our Rich McHugh interviewing Lindy Lee from the DNC.
$650 million total for
just for that Las Vegas ad, just for that Sphere, just for Kamala Harris on the Sphere in Las Vegas, that ad alone. So, I mean, they're saying that this is several staff haven't been paid yet from the DNC official Lindy Lee. Also, giant donors are pulling out, and then the DNC leadership is likely going to fall out from all this.
$650 total ad spend, $450 on the Sphere.
Exactly.
I mean, there's money all over the place.
Yeah.
And then we're learning Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions got paid. I remember, Kelly, when there were lots of stories about Elon Musk using $1 million of his own money to go with that, lottery or however it shook out.
Yeah.
Now we're learning campaign money was going to Oprah's production company.
Yeah, $1 million to Harpo Productions, so that's owned by Oprah. And then not only Oprah, but we were also learning that all those celebrity performances, appearances, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Ricky Martin, all of that on that election eve, Philadelphia, Rocky Steps, all of that. There was $15 million on event production, so that includes the Gaga, Ricky Martin concerts. So, like you said, they were coming after Elon Musk for giving away $1 million, but there were a lot of celebrities that were paid here, too.
You called 15 vendors today, I believed?
Yeah.
Folks who reportedly maybe haven't been paid yet?
Potentially no answer, no response, no comment. Right. So we're still going through the list.
All right. Kelly Meyer, NewsNation Washington correspondent. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. All right. Meantime, an unprecedented and historic court decision expected by tomorrow as Donald Trump is preparing to move back into the White House. Judge Juan Merchan set to make a decision in Trump's hush money case on whether the criminal conviction should be overturned following the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. Joining us now, NewsNation legal contributor Jesse Weber. Hello, Jesse. Happy Monday. We start the week off doing a little bit of law. Thanks for being with us. So this decision tomorrow essentially is whether or not all of this this New York case should be tossed, right?
And it's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it. So in other words, it would basically be we take the Supreme Court's decision and we say that there was evidence that was admitted in Donald Trump's New York trial that should not have been admitted because it was evidence about official acts. So if we're talking about social media posts when he was president or conversations he had with White House aides, if the judge accepts that and says, you know what, okay, yeah, that shouldn't have come in. The next question is If you don't know if that wasn't supposed to come in, would it have changed the verdict? And if Judge Marchand says, you know what, it would have, case maybe gets tossed. If he says no, the verdict stays, then here's another question that the Donald Trump's team will do. We'll say, okay, you disagree? We want to appeal this. Pause the sentencing until we get a chance to appeal this to a higher court. And if the judge disagrees there, then he can move forward with sentencing. And then it becomes a question of what he would sentence Donald Trump to.
Yeah, so that's my question. If there is sentencing, what do you? I mean, all of this obviously is unprecedented. What do you think happens?
There's a number of ways.
They don't teach this in law school, right, Jesse?
They have not, and thankfully for good reason. We've never seen anything like this. But no, I think that the answer would be, I don't think he's going to sentence him to prison. I mean, even if he, first of all, based on the law of what he was actually convicted of, is unlikely, and given the unprecedented nature of a president-elect, I don't think he's going to do that. But even if he were to sentence him to some sort of incarceration, Donald Trump could pause that and say, we're going to delay this as we appeal it. And I think he would have a number of grounds to do it. So I think the likelihood that Donald Trump actually goes to prison for this is highly unlikely. But it's going to be fascinating to see which way Judge Marchand goes, especially with the immunity issue.
All right. Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor. Thank you, Sarah. Probably talk to you tomorrow. Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
You got it. All right. Meantime, the president-elect is tapping two of his strongest immigration enforcement allies to join his upcoming administration. He's bringing on the former head of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Tom Homan. Homan will be the quote-unquote border czar in the administration. It's also believed that Stephen Miller, a key advisor, could be coming to the White House as well. It follows a shift to the right for border areas that voted Democratic for decades. One of them, Starr County, Texas, for example, had voted blue every single election since the late 1800s. It is represented by the Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar, whose district includes Laredo and a large stretch of the Mexican border. And the congressman joins us live here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you.
You got it. So I want to show for our audience here on NewsNation or those listening to us on SiriusXM your area and what's happened. So in Laredo, this is Webb County. Webb County, here's what happened over the last two elections. Joe Biden, or the Democrats, won it by 23 points, Congressman. You know this. 4 years ago, Donald Trump was able to win it, though, your area. And then when I go down, for example, to Starr County, right? Starr County, the Democrat, Joe Biden, won it by 5 points last go-around. It's plus 16 Republican right now. How do you explain that? Is it just the issue of immigration, or is it beyond that?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate President Trump for this victory. And yes, he did win Webb, Zapata, Starr, those areas that I represent. But it's also important to note that the local Democrats that were running did win the local races in those three counties. I won Starr County by almost 70% of the vote, and I outperformed both Trump in those counties, and I certainly outperformed Vice President Harris by almost 16
you
points.
Did. No, you absolutely did, Congressman. But you know, this country largely, and I'm not diminishing your win at all or any congressional win at all, but, you know, the conversation had been about the top of the ticket. And I just wonder, Congressman, if immigration was the issue, and if it was, as a Democrat along the border in Congress, what you do going forward. Do you go along what Democrats want, or do you say, hey, listen, I saw what happened at the top of the ticket, and do you side with Republicans on the issue of immigration?
No, I think the Republicans are going to actually side with me on a lot of the issues that I've been talking about for so many years. For so many years, I've said, look, you got to have repercussions at the border. For the people that are supposed to come in, you let them in. But the majority of the people that are asking for asylum are going to be rejected 88 to 90%. So we have to make sure that people understand. For years, there's been this undercurrent tension with Hispanics that had their parents, like my parents, that came in the legal way. But when they're seeing people jump the line and there's billions of dollars being spent of the hard-earned dollars on these migrants, the dam has busted. And this is why immigration and certainly the cost of groceries, whether it's milk or it's bread or it's eggs, those things is what got people changing over to Donald Trump.
Let me ask you this and leave you with this, Congressman. H.R. 2 is the Washington term for the House bill that Republicans passed and wanted to take up in the last Congress. The information's on the screen there, but you know it well. If Republicans put that on the floor again as a border district Democrat, would you vote for that, or are there issues?
Well, I certainly would ask my Republican friends, will you take input from Democrats that don't go and visit the border for a photo op, but actually live there? There's a lot of things in that bill that I've looked at that we're already doing, giving more money to ICE, Stone Garden, making sure we have technology and roads. A lot of those things we're doing, and we got to do more of that. But I think they need to sit down with some of us, like Tom Homan. I've worked with him in the past. We can agree on a lot of things. Oh, yes. The answer is yes. You know, it might not be 100%, but I'll say this. I like Tom Homan. We've gone along together.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, just because I'm running up against time. There's a lot of Democrats who are going to say, my gosh, Tom Homan, they don't like him at all. What would you say to the Democrats that they get wrong about Tom Homan?
Well, you know,
or anyone who has concerns.
Yeah. Look, Tom is very passionate about the work. You know, there are some things I might not agree about, dividing families, things like that. But there's a lot of things that Tom Homan and I actually have agreed. We've been on some shows together. We've done certain things together. We agree on a lot of things, but we just got to make sure that we don't go extreme left or extreme right. And I think people like Tom Homan, and I'll say this, we can sit down and work together because I've been doing this for many years.
Yep. Congressman Cuellar, we got to leave it there. Again, thank you for being with us here on the Hill. Always appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right, still to come here from the Hill, a FEMA employee fired in Florida for making a political statement about Trump supporters. So what did they say? Plus, a look at Arlington National Cemetery today as Americans across the country observe Veterans Day. Full panel on the other side of the break here on the Hill.
Former President Donald Trump will be our next president.
Americans made their choice, and they found a new home for news, NewsNation.
No one has been close to NewsNation because of DDHQ.
That's NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. The fallout from the presidential election continues as Democrats scramble for answers of what went wrong. The congressman from Massachusetts, Seth Moulton, put forward one theory that is facing some backlash within his own party. Moulton claims that his party, quote, spends way too much time trying to not offend anyone rather than being brutally honest, end quote. He then went on to highlight transgender issues, saying, quote, I've got 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. That quote sparked instant criticism from within his own party, and his own campaign manager resigned in response. But Moulton has doubled down.
I stand by my position. You know, maybe I didn't get all the words exactly right. But the point is that the backlash I've received proves my point that we can't even have these discussions as a party. I mean, the chairman of the Massachusetts Democratic Party wouldn't even return my phone call.
Full panel here with me now. Michaela Carr, former chief of staff for Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Julie Manchester, national political reporter for thehill.com. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor as well. Hello, all. Happy Monday. Hello. First Monday after the election. Moulton, I'll start with you because he's your party.
Moulton's right.
Did he get it right there?
He's right about the debate. And I've said this to you before, the majority of America and the majority of these parties, GOP and DNC, are in the middle. Both have far right and far left groups. And so why not have that debate, if you will? These are deeply personal issues, especially on the transgender issue, as well as gender changing for young people.
But why won't it happen? I mean, he's catching flack from within his own party, from within his own campaign, from within his own state.
Yeah, there's a lot of anger out there right now, given what happened on Tuesday. I think once we take a deep breath, the party is going to have to do an autopsy report. And this debate and some of these identity issues, we're going to have to figure out how to talk to the American people better, more, and how we talk to them.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, look, the vast majority of the American people, I believe, are a live and let live type of person. But when you're looking at, my grandmother, generations of women fought like cats basically, to get space for themselves.
Ladies, right?
Exactly right. No, to get space for themselves, and to now be told that, you know, we should have men in women's prisons, we should have men in women's locker rooms, and not only be told that, but be told that you're a bigot or a bad person for questioning it, didn't sit well.
You know what's interesting? Scott was mad last week. Scott was like, you were upset. And that was introspection out of Scott. And I think, Julia, that's some of the conversations that's some of the conversations that Democrats are having right now.
Absolutely. I mean, conversations about not only these cultural issues and how to message on them, but also conversations about the economy, like immigration. You know, in the break, we were talking about how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district, even though she won re-election, swung 24 points towards former President Trump, and how she's saying this, how the president, the Manhattan Borough president, a Democrat, is saying we have to figure out how we talk about the economy, how we talk to these working class voters.
So is it about, Chris, the messaging that Julia refers to, or that Democrats were just simply on the wrong side of the policy here? I know this was still close to a 50-50 election, no matter if you look at it.
The cautionary tale here, it won't do Democrats any good, because they got 2 years out in the wilderness, and then they're going to have midterms, and either they're going to know how to do it or they're not going to know how to do it in 2 years. But all that will substantially depend on what kind of job the Republicans do in the next 2 years. And the lesson here is for Republicans. You get power in a narrowly divided country. We talk about it's a big win, but it ain't that big, right? It's about the same size that Biden had in 2020. So what's the lesson? Don't get crazy. Don't get nuts. Don't do big, weird things that freak people out and keep your base home. The test for Republicans now is it feels so good to be back, right? But they're high on their own supply. Do they have the self-restraint that Democrats lacked 4 years ago to restrain themselves? That's how you build a majority.
And one thing to add there were a lot of split-ticket voters. So, for example, Florida, I mean, they didn't pass the amendment, but 57% of voters voted to enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution. Arizona, Nevada, Missouri, states that went to Trump, voted pro-abortion, if you will.
Michigan, Wisconsin,
7.
Nevada, Arizona, Democratic Senate candidates all held on. Message from voters continues to be the same for both parties. Be cool.
And, you know, Harris wasn't winning these swing states, but she was close. She was getting 50,000, 100,000 votes apart. It's like a prize fight, right? But
the Democrats were running way ahead of her in those states.
Well, no question about it. But I'm just saying, you wake up in a prize fight and you say you lost, you didn't win one round, but every round was 10-9. That's how this race felt.
Right. Meanwhile, FEMA worker rather, is out of a job, fired after instructing hurricane responders to avoid homes with pro-Trump signs. The administrator for FEMA calling the action, quote, reprehensible. The head of FEMA said, quote, this is a clear violation of our core values and principles to help people regardless of their political affiliation. As I mentioned, this was reprehensible. All right. So obviously this person, reprehensible, fired, shouldn't have happened. There's questions now, Michaela, of how much more of this may have occurred. How much of this do we not know of? Here in Washington, though, there's a real question, and let's show the graphic. Donald Trump's plan for federal workforce, of how much Donald Trump wants to peel back the federal workforce and the size. And I think an example like this is only going to make his argument louder.
I think that's exactly right. I think it was 1996 when Bill Clinton said, the era of big government is over.
How'd that happen?
It has only grown exponentially since then. And we are at a point where we are $35 trillion in debt. We are paying $2.5 billion a day in interest alone. And the number one driving factor in job growth over the last year was government jobs. So yes, we need to do what we said we were going to do, and there should be a real significant decrease in the bureaucratic state.
It'll never happen because you've got.
So here's Mick.
You got unions and lawsuits and lawyers like me. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's not in the first couple of years.
Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, wrote an op-ed in The Hill. We need to have a talk about making the federal bureaucracy work better. And Mick gave a story of like when he ran several government agencies. He fired or something like 8 people in the entire agency were able to be fired. Just how hard it is, Chris, for that to happen.
Well, I'm very curious. So we're starting to see the Trump community, the band coming back together, and we're seeing some famous faces from Trump days of yore. I'm very curious about when we will get to see Vivek Ramaswamy. Because, so we've talked about...
He talked about 75% cut to the federal workforce.
And he had some very bold ideas about how you would do that, and that there were extra powers that the president had that he could use. So we've got Stefanik getting the band together. You got Stefanik, you got Homan, you got Zeldin. Where's Vivek?
Question on Vivek, though. There's going to be a vacant Senate seat in Ohio pretty soon with a vice president-elect. Do you think that's Vivek?
I mean, the question is, you have a governor of Ohio who is not your prototypical Ramaswamyan.
What happens with him while we're on the topic?
Whatever he wants to do, I think will be good. And I do think that there's a lot.
Where does he land up? Where does he end up?
I mean, I wouldn't have a hard time with putting him in charge of some cutting. I think between him and Elon trying to reel in the size of the bloated government, we have to get our economy back, and it needs to happen through the private sector, not more government jobs.
I got one message for Vivek, or however you say it.
Vivek. Like cake.
Come on. Welcome to Washington. The bureaucracy is waiting for you. That's right. The unions are waiting for you.
Is or isn't?
God bless you and your efforts.
By the way, maybe not to the moon, but up and to the right. The S&P 500, Dow, and NASDAQ all closing at record highs today, all up roughly 5 to 6% since Election Day. But perhaps the biggest winner, crypto. We told you how they suddenly became a big player in politics, and now markets are reacting. Bitcoin, by the way, at an all-time high right now, at one point today hitting $89,000. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other side of the break, Leland Vitter, host of On Balance, joins me. Stay with us here on The Hill. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Live look at the White House right now, as today was a day where we started to learn about some of the cabinet members and some of the teams surrounding Donald Trump. And there are reports out this evening that Congressman Michael Waltz reportedly will be joining the incoming Trump administration as the National Security Advisor. Joining me now, host of On Balance, Leland Vitter. Hello, sir. What is so fascinating about this is there are believed to be Republicans probably going to win about 220 seats in the House. You need 218 to keep control of the House. Elise Stefanik going to the UN. If you work under, Leland, the theory that Republicans get 220, that brings you to 219. If Michael Waltz goes to the National Security Advisor position, you're at 218, and Donald Trump can't pick any more Republicans from the House.
Unless you want to get super wonky.
Okay.
Because you could end up having an election of Speaker in early January when the new House is sat, before the president is sworn in, then they would have to resign because of the separations of powers to take a job in the administration. But it shows a certain amount of confidence. I think you're right.